Unfortunately, the real reality of boat detailing is sometimes jobs cancel the day of. Woke up this morning, I'm on my way. Through some weird circumstances, my job ended up canceling. I have no work today. So what we're gonna do in this video is I actually have another boat that I need to go quote. A guy called me yesterday and said, hey, will you go quote my boat? So what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm gonna walk you guys through kind of my quoting process and what I do, kind of what I look for, and a few little telltale signs of how much oxidation. And then we're gonna go over pricing. I'm gonna basically break down my entire quote for this guy and send it over to him, and let's see if we can book the job. Let's go. So we are out here at the wharf. We're going to go give a quote on this boat. It's a beautiful boat. We have found our boat already. Overall, just first and look at it, it's actually not in too bad of shape. At least it's not too incredibly dirty. First thing I do is I just kind of look in the cabin area here. Looking up here on the dash, looks pretty dry. It's super dry up there. I don't know if you could tell. I know it's kind of overexposed right now, but it's pretty dry. The seats, we can see how dirty the seats are. They're pretty bad. They're definitely going to need a lot of attention, probably a lot more attention than I'm even thinking. Typically on vinyl seats, man, if they look dirty, they're probably really dirty. Once you start taking magic erasers and degreaser and stuff to them, they'll really clean up, and then you'll really see them a lot. Another thing too, guys, to just kind of look for when you're quoting a boat is to see how much stuff is in there, because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to take all of this stuff out. So open up the compartments, you know, all this stuff, removing all this stuff, putting it all back in, all takes time. These compartments are all filled. One thing you can also do is when you first get to the boat, look down it on an angle. There's a decent amount of oxidation on this boat. I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm gonna darken it up so you can see all that oxidation on here. I mean, it's pretty dull, all right? It feels really dry. One thing too is I do like to feel these boats. You can hear it. It feels really dry. Looking down it on an angle, you can see a bunch of dullness in there. I mean, it's obviously not the worst boat I've ever seen, but it's definitely gonna need to be compounded, especially on this tow rail here. So one cool thing too, this is a formula, all right? A lot of formulas are painted, especially the color. So the white is gonna be gel coat and this blue is painted. One way you can tell is you can almost see this little line right here. You can stick your nail in there. You can actually feel the paint. Most of these formulas are all white, and then they end up painting them afterwards. So they'll spray them white in the mold. That's why it's white down there. And then they'll actually paint the blue. It's actually painted. It's not colored gel coat. It's actually painted. So if you're doing a formula, make sure it's not gel coat and that it's actually paint. One thing back here, guys, you can see there is a lot of oxidation on this. It is very, very, very dry. And this is all stuff we have to take into account. I mean, you can't even see a shine on that. That's how dry it is. So rubbing the gel coat. And back here would be one of those moments where we want to lift up the hatch to actually see how oxidized it really is. All right, so in this hatch right here, you can actually see that is the clarity of it. Now, luckily this boat is a true white, so that's good. It's not like supposed to be beige or anything, so that makes me feel a little bit better. You won't have to do as much cutting because we're not actually changing the color of the boat. We're just trying to make it white again. But look, so you can see the paint. This is actually the clear in the paint starting to deteriorate. There's really not much you can do for that, guys. That's just the paint starting to deteriorate. If you go sanding on that, there's a good chance you're gonna blow right through that paint. Now, another thing too, this whole side of the boat does not have a dock. So when you're quoting these boats, guys, you're gonna have to put into account that the boat's gonna have to be either turned around or you're gonna need some type of flotation device. So as of right now, we can walk on the dock here and do the entire side up to about right here, and then the rest we can do on the top side. But on the other side, you literally don't have this dock, so you'll have to coordinate actually turning the boat all the way around. One more thing to take into account is in here, these carpets all snap out. So we will be removing all of the carpets to get all underneath them as well. So underneath these seat cushions, there's a lot of mold as well. You see all this mold under here. That's all gonna take time, guys. So make sure you look through these boats thoroughly before giving it a quote. So guys, the way I usually go about doing this when I am quoting a boat, first thing I'll do is I'll come take a look at it. All right, this is a big boat, so it's well worth my time to come take a look at it, even if I book the job or I don't. So first thing I'll do is I'll come take a look at it, just like we did. It's a super quick process. This process is only going to take me about 15 minutes, okay? So we come look at it, and usually in my mind, I know about what I'm going to do. All right, so first step is going to be looking at this boat. All right, I'm looking at the boat, kind of getting an overall view of the seat cushions, the metal, the compartments, just kind of overall what the boat is actually going to overall need to be able to get it done correctly. Now the second step is going to be determining in my mind what I think the boat's going to need. All right, so overall from what I've seen, I'm going to say this boat is going to need at least 2 steps of cutting to really cut through some of that splotchy oxidation. One thing too that I want to note is most boats that have like really splotchy, where it's like glossy here but dull here, you typically have to cut a little more because you have to cut through that oxidation. One thing too is when you're cutting through oxidation, oxidation's not level, so you don't want to just cut through the light oxidation, you have to cut through all of the oxidation. That's why if you don't use a heavy enough compound or sanding, that's why in 2 to 3 months the oxidation comes back. It's not like it really actually comes back, it's just you never actually removed it all in the first place. All you did was level down some of the oxidation, but you did not remove all of it. So what we want to make sure we do every single time is remove all of the oxidation by cutting one step past all of the oxidation and then bringing the gel coat back to life. So with all that said, I'm gonna say this boat's gonna need at least a Super 600 compound on the white wool pad. It's going to need 400 on the white wool pad, and then we're gonna do the Flex 3401 VRG with the gray foam pad, and then we're gonna wax it. So that's 4 steps. Okay, we got the Super 600 on the white, we have the Manzerna 400 on the white wool, we have the gray or the orange, give or take, on my test spot, and then we have our wax. Okay, that's 4 steps, and then I'm gonna also top it with the SiO2, which I've been doing on all my boats anyway, but I'm not gonna count that. So we got 4 steps. Now, this is only what I think in my head, okay? When I do a test spot, which is gonna be the next step, when I do a test spot, that's actually gonna determine the exact steps that we need. The reason why we do a test spot is to say, hey, look, customer, Mr. Customer, this is what I think your boat needs, but let me determine what the boat actually needs by doing, you know, like a 3-foot test spot to make sure what I think it needs is actually what it needs. Before I do a test spot, typically, I will call the customer and give them a rough guesstimation of what steps I think it's going to take. Only because if you go doing a test spot and you're way out of the ballpark for the customer, now you just wasted your time, 1, and 2, you just put a big old nice shiny spot on the side of their boat. And it's going to leave the customer probably upset, and it's going to be a big waste of your time. So before we do a test spot, I always contact the customer, tell them what I think the boat actually needs, and then I call them, tell them what I think the boat needs, and then I give them a ballpark, and then I say, look, if you're okay with this ballpark figure, let me do a test spot just to make sure that's what the boat actually needs, because it could be a little more, and it also maybe could be a little less if the boat doesn't need all of those steps. You know, you could go do a test spot and then call the customer, but personally, I don't want to waste my time, and 2, I don't want to waste the customer time or put a big old nice shiny spot on their boat when they can't afford my services. In this case, I've called the customer a few times and he's not answering. Unfortunately, that happens. So what you'll have to do is just kind of keep it in your mind, the steps that it needs, and then what you can do is give them a ballpark. And if they're cool with that ballpark and they're like, yeah, let's go for it, let's do that ballpark, and you tell them, look, it could be a little more, it could be a little less, once I do my test spot and actually figure out what the boat actually needs. If they're cool with that ballpark, then just go ahead and book the job. All right, so I'm gonna leave now because he's not answering my calls, and then I'm gonna tell him, look, this is what I think the boat needs, this is the ballpark range it's gonna be around, and if you're okay with that price, then let's go ahead and just book the job. Now, on the first day of the job, before you do anything, before you wash the boat, before you detail it, do a small test spot somewhere on the boat just to make sure that the process you think in your brain is actually the process that's going to work. Now, it's better to book the job, do the test spot, and then have to reschedule, or maybe the test spot is a little more work, but now you already have the job booked, so it'll give you a little bit of leeway, and you could say, look, I already have the job booked. You know, yes, it's $1,000 more to do it, but I tell you what, I'll make you a deal because we already got the job booked. Let's do it for $600 more, and I'll make it happy. You know, you may lose out on a few $100, give or take. Don't kill yourself and give away work for free. Please do not do that. But it gives you a little more leeway to say, look, the job's already booked. Let's just go ahead and knock it out and just get it done and get it looking right. So guys, a couple things to really look for. You know, one is going to be your oxidation and getting your steps down. All right. And now it's going to come in time. You will learn to do things more efficiently. You're going to learn to get better at your job per se. You're going to learn to figure out in your head just by looking at something and saying, hey, look, I think this is what the boat needs. You might be off a one step or two, but you need to get good at eyeballing boats and just actually figuring out what the boat needs. All right, guys, so just to recap, all right, the biggest things you want to look for is oxidation. That's our #1 game. You're going to have to determine how many steps it's going to take to get the boat looking right. Second thing, too, is going to be looking at your seats, your compartments, your flooring, your isinglass. This boat has a lot of isinglass up here, so you want to look at those things too, because those things are time consuming. You're going to have to polish the metal, you're going to have to clean the compartments, you're going to have to remove the mold from the seats, you're going to have to scrub the seats. So all of that stuff will take a good solid day. All right, the few things you want to look for is oxidation, your metal, your compartments, your seats, and then overall how many steps it's going to take you to remove all of the oxidation and get the boat looking right. So guys, let's go ahead and go over pricing, but first I'm gonna walk to my truck. It's hot as a mofo out here, so I'm gonna go sit in AC in the truck and let's hop into the pricing. You know, one little tip too as far as pricing, if you don't know how much to actually charge, one thing you can do too is, you know, tell them, hey, look, you know, I think the boat needs the 2-step cutting, the polishing, and the wax. So we're talking 4 steps. I think the boat needs 4 steps, but it could also possibly need to be wet sanded with 1000 grit and have 2 more or 1 more cutting step, okay? And there's no shame in the game as far as saying, look, if it needs the sanding, then it's gonna be this much. If it just needs the buffing, then it's gonna be this much. But that's why I need to do a test spot to actually see what the boat needs. As I was leaving and just looking, I'm like, man, you know what? Maybe the 2-step compounding might not be enough, because I have a feeling, you know, every boat's different, and once you get into the boat, it always turns out to be more of a pain than you think. Okay, every single boat always turns out to be more of a pain than you think it's gonna be. So guys, it does not hurt to just tell people straight up, like, hey, it may be more. So guys, I just got back in my truck and my battery is dying on my camera, so we're gonna have to hop to my office to do this, so I will see you guys in a second. What's up, guys? I am now back in my office, got home, and let's go over our pricing structure for this boat, okay? So first thing to note, this boat is a 40-foot cabin cruiser style boat. If you do not know what cabin cruiser is, this is that kind of style of boat. And also, one thing to note is we're only doing the top side. We're not doing the rubber down, we're not doing the hull, we are only doing the top side of the boat. So the way we're gonna price this, okay, the way we're gonna structure this is we're always gonna start off with our minimum detail, okay? And that detail is going to be our wash and our wax package. That is where I base all of my prices off of, and I'll put up a video soon kind of breaking down more on pricing structure in a little bit. But on this, we're gonna do basically the top side only, and we're gonna do our wash and our wax package. And that wash and wax package is gonna take care of the seats, it's gonna take care of the metal, it's gonna take care of the compartments. It's also gonna take care of washing the boat, and it's gonna take care of waxing the entire boat. So for that package alone, we're gonna start off at $25 a foot, and then we're gonna build from there. Okay, I typically start at about $25 a foot for top sides when it comes to our wash and our wax package. So in this case, it's a 40-foot boat. So what we're gonna do is just take a calculator and you go 40 feet times $25 a foot gives us $1,000. So basically our wash and our wax detail, full detail on this boat is gonna be $1,000. Now, we have to calculate for sanding possibly, and we're gonna have to calculate for our buffing steps. So how do we do that? Now, first thing we do is we build off of the $25 a foot. So at the very minimum, it's gonna be $1,000 for this boat. We're gonna build on the compounding. So what I said earlier in the boat is I believe it's gonna need 2 steps of compounding with the 600 and the 1000, and then we're gonna polish it and wax it. So that leaves us at 4 steps. Now, also, one thing to note in this boat, how I said earlier that inside the cockpit was not nearly as bad as the rest of the boat. Now, versus the actual very back of the boat is probably going to need a little bit of sanding as well. So I kind of leave room for both. So likewise, It may not be as bad in the cockpit area, but it is actually worse than the sides on the very back where it has the name and stuff. So I'm gonna kind of compensate for that. So we're typically at about $25 a foot for our base wash and wax package. And then I'm gonna come in right at about $20 a foot per step that we have to do. We got 20 times 3 extra steps. All right, so that puts us at $60 a foot extra. And then we're gonna times that by 40 feet. And that gives us a total cost of $2,400 plus our first initial cost, our base cost of $1,000, puts us at about $3,400 for this boat. So what I typically like to do is just grab a piece of paper and a pen or whatever you have, it may be in front of you. And I usually like to write down the $3,400, and then I usually add on if we have to do the sanding. So you kind of give the customer 2 options, okay? And this is what I was saying, on the boat was you always want to be prepared for not knowing what the boat's gonna need. So if you give them a ballpark figure, you could say, look, I think it's gonna need this, but it also may need this. This is gonna be your 2 price points. If you're okay with that, let's go ahead, book the job. We could do a test spot. The price could go up and down, but it's either probably going to be one of these packages. That way you don't catch the customer off guard. So go ahead, write down your prices, and then all you got to do now is pitch the job to the customer. Talk to the customer, make friendly, explain the pricing, explain the system, and just do your thing, guys. I'm not perfect. I don't, there's different ways I could sell the job, and I'm not here to sell anybody. I'm not here to make anyone do anything. I'm here to tell you what your boat needs, and if you want that, let's do it. And that's where, personal referrals, personal, references and that kind of thing, go a long way. Honestly, the people that referred him to me sold the job. I didn't even sell it. Guys, like always, if you got any value out of this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell notification. So every time I make a video, it'll pop up. I hope that helps you a little bit on pricing. I hope that helps you a little bit on how to quote, how to talk to the customer, how to explain things. And guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on my next one.